My name is Hannah, and this is my year of less stuff. Hey y'all, I'm sitting down today to film a discussion style video about the relationship between makeup and the emotion of shame. It's something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. I went ahead and made a list of all of the different kinds of shame that surround makeup, and I'm going to go through my list and briefly touch on my personal experience with each one of them. At the end of the video, I'll discuss potential takeaways from this discussion, and we can think together about how we might use, having analyzed this relationship between makeup and shame, having thought about it and made ourselves highly aware of it, how we might use that to bolster our financial and mental health going forward. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome! I'm so glad you are here. I'm a passionate lover of beauty and beautiful things, but not at the expense of my financial health or yours. So on my channel, I appreciate the true value of beauty and what it can add to our lives, but without normalizing overspending on beauty products. If that sounds good to you, I hope that you will subscribe. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. So I have this list here that I made of the different kinds of shame that can surround makeup, but before I share it with you, I want to talk about the dictionary definition of shame, because when I looked it up, when I sat down to make notes for this video, I was sort of surprised. There's something about it that I take slight issue with or that I want to improve upon or add to. So the dictionary that I'm using, when I looked up shame, the primary definition came up as a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. I'm definitely going to get into aspects of shame that are connected to makeup that fit that definition perfectly, but I think that this definition leaves something to be desired, because I also think that shame, especially beauty-related physical shame, makeup shame, doesn't just come from awareness of one's own wrong or inappropriate behavior. It also comes from awareness of one's own existence, physical reality being perceived as wrong or inappropriate. So for example, my skin is often red and blotchy, and I feel ashamed of that, so I try to cover it up with makeup. That's not behavior unless I extrapolate from my red and blotchy skin to believe that it's that way because of something I've done wrong. But I don't necessarily feel that. It's just the cards that I was dealt. It's just the body that I have. So I would expand this definition of shame to say that it's a painful feeling of humiliation and distress that's caused by the consciousness of either wrong or foolish behavior, or of just being away, of having characteristics that are not considered to be correct or valuable by society, and often then not considered to be correct or valuable by ourselves. And the kind of shame that's first on my list of all of these kinds of makeup related shame is the second kind. It's the shame that can sometimes drive us to wear makeup. Here on Beauty YouTube, most of us love makeup for its own sake. We love wearing it. We wear it to enhance. But there's another side of makeup that is shame-based. Many people use makeup because they don't like the way that they look without it. I think it's worth pointing out that every time I sit down to do my makeup, it's a combination of the two things. I am both concealing and enhancing. So some of what I'm doing is celebratory and artistic, and some of what I'm doing is covering up, hiding, trying to obscure the way that I looked when I woke up that morning. And I'm not condemning this. I'm not saying that I'm wrong or that I'm not strong for giving into that kind of shame. I love being able to just dot a couple of dots of concealer on my face and blend them out and have a smoother and creamier looking complexion, a more even-toned complexion. It makes me feel more confident, not only on the grounds of how I believe other people will perceive me, although that's a big part of it. Like if I walk into a coffee shop with the blotchy red skin with which I woke up that morning, I know that people looking at me are going to see me slightly differently than they would if I walked into that same coffee shop with just a little bit of concealer, making my skin look a little bit calmer and more even toned. So that's part of it, and there is a shame relationship with that reality. But it's also for myself. Just when I look in the mirror, I am also assessing myself, and I feel more confident when I assess myself as just not looking like a person with blotchy skin, even though I am a person with blotchy skin. because of the judgy society in which we live and because of the judginess that I've internalized, I'm glad that I have the tools to even out my skin tone quickly if I want to. It would be amazing if we could work towards a less judgy society, and it would be amazing if I could be less judgy on myself, and that is something that I am working towards. But in the meantime, it's nice to be able to take advantage of these tools. So that's the perspective of someone who does love makeup and who loves indulging in the artistic side of it. But I know that there are a lot of people out there who would prefer not to wear makeup, who don't really have an artistic relationship with it, don't like it at all, feel uncomfortable engaging in it, don't feel good at it, and also don't want to spend the money on it or can't afford to spend the money on it, but who are driven to wear makeup because of shame. For a lot of people, shame is what necessitates makeup. And I feel like you can't start a discussion about shame and makeup without putting that out on the table, even though that's not the beginning and end of my relationship with makeup and probably isn't the beginning and end of many of your relationships with makeup. It just has to be said. So number 1 on my list was the shame that drives us to wear makeup. Number 2 on my list is the exact opposite, the shame that we incur because of wearing makeup. And I want to know how many of you out there have ever felt shame or been caused to feel shame because of the makeup that you had on your face in any given situation. I have a ton of experience with this particular kind of shame because I don't come from a family in which the women wear makeup, and I also have spent a lot of time in academic circles. There have been so many times when I'm preparing for a party or an event or a gathering of people, and I'm so excited to have a chance to put on my beautiful makeup that I really love and to exercise my skills, that I go a little bit overboard. And then I arrive at the event and I feel overdressed on my face. I sometimes feel like I can never get it right. I just feel like I can never calibrate the right amount of makeup and the right makeup to wear to any given occasion before I arrive. And then once I arrive, I'm always like, oh, I should have done this or I shouldn't have done this. I just feel like I'm wrong every time because makeup is so stigmatized in our culture. You're stigmatized if you wear it in any given way. Like any given way that you wear it, someone's going to judge you. And I feel like in many cases, any given way that I wear it, I'm going to judge myself. But not wearing it at all is also a problem because of number 1. There's this shame of not wearing it at all. So it's like we're being asked both to wear it and to not wear it. Number 3 on my list is, again, one that I'm really interested in hearing your takes on: shame about not knowing how to use makeup. I know so many people who express to me their discomfort with their own skills at makeup, their desire to learn better how to wear makeup, and their shame that they don't really know what to do with it. You can clearly see how this type of shame over not knowing how to use makeup, interacts with shame number 1, which was the shame that drives us to wear makeup. So if you're sitting around, you're experiencing some kind of shame or discomfort that comes from the way you happen to look, the way that you look when you did wake up like this, then you're driven to wear makeup by that shame, but then you find that you don't know quite how to use it, you feel like you're using it wrong. You put it on in the morning and it looks fine, and then a couple hours later you look in the mirror and you're horrified because it's clear on your face that you don't really know how to use makeup. This has happened to me so many times. So many times. So even as part of the trial and error that allows us to feel more confident and to enjoy the artistic side of this form of expression, even in that realm, there are all of these stepping stones of shame that go along with the error part of trial and error. I also think, and for this I'm sort of tapping into my knowledge about my own friends and the people that I've talked to about makeup, and some of you talking about makeup with some of you, I also think that there is a little bit of shame that goes along with feeling like you're a person who should know how to use makeup for whatever reason, like you're the kind of person who should know. I think for some women, this comes just from being a woman. There are so many women who aren't that confident with makeup, but they feel like they should be, and they feel somehow like they're at fault for not quite knowing how to use it. I think that this is often intensified when women are in professional roles where they're expected to look a certain way and be polished in a certain way, especially if you're a woman who doesn't like makeup, doesn't want to wear makeup, but you're in this professional capacity and you're expected to look polished in this specific way, which is, I'm trying to save the commentary for the end, but just side note, which is so bananas. It's so bananas that there are people who are not free to just wake up in the morning, put on clothes, and go to their job with the face that they have, like the face with which they woke up. There are so many jobs that are literally completely nothing to do with beauty or cosmetics or femininity or the way that you look. So many jobs that you can do perfectly well no matter how you look. And yet the people doing those jobs are required to engage in this thing, which is the act of wearing makeup, that it's just arbitrary. It's just nuts. I need to calm down. Moving on to the next one on my list. We're now getting into like the ooey gooey stuff that I tend to talk the most about on my channel. The shame about owning it. Shame about owning it or owning too much of it. And once again, this one is in a weird way like the polar opposite of the one that we just talked about. So shame about not knowing how to use makeup kind of extends to like shame about not having the right makeup, not having enough makeup, not having the tools, etc. And then there's this other kind of shame, really powerful, very present in many people's lives, that is the shame about the exact opposite thing. Having too much of it, owning too much of it. How many times has someone looked at your makeup, either your makeup vanity, your makeup drawers in your bathroom, in your bedroom, or your makeup carrying case when you took your makeup home for the holidays or on vacation? How many times has someone looked at either some or all of your makeup and said,
"Wow, that's a lot of makeup"?
In my life, many times. Many times. And of course, the people who are coming into my home and seeing my makeup, or the people with whom I'm getting ready at a tango festival, or my family members who see the makeup that I take home for the holidays, the people in my life who have said, wow, that's a lot of makeup, to me, are people who care about me. And even if they say it in a judgy way, I don't feel like they're shaming me. But it does make me feel this shame, like, oh my gosh, I have so much makeup and these people are seeing it. It's like they're seeing my guts, like seeing the inside of my diary. And of course, the amount of makeup that constitutes a lot of makeup is relative. It's relative to your economic circumstances. It's relative to the amount of space that you have. It's also relative to culture, the culture of the country in which you grew up, the culture of the family in which you grew up. In the culture of my family, what I currently have is an insane, crazy, bananas amount of makeup. But there are a lot of people who would look at my collection and be like, oh, I thought it would be bigger. And indeed, when I have shared my makeup collection, my full collection on YouTube, I always get barrages of versions of both of those comments. I think that there's also an aspect of the shame about owning makeup or owning too much makeup that comes from the obsession, the aesthetic obsession with minimalism that's all over social media right now and has been for a few years. We are very accustomed to seeing images of the interiors of people's homes and bathrooms that make it look like beautiful people and people with beautiful spaces only have a few of each type of item when it comes to makeup and have none at all of many types of items. And granted, there are a lot of people who do have truly minimalist makeup collections, and I'm not going after those people. If that's your style and if that's truly your life, then that's amazing. I'm really happy that you have managed to set your life up to suit you so well. But I myself want contradictory things. I want my life to look like that, curated and gilded and marble surfaced, and just a few beautiful ferrules of brushes and one little lipstick. I want my life to look like that, but I also want to own way more makeup than that because I love it. I love makeup and I want to own the amount that I do have. But the amount that I do have could never be arranged in a way that would cause it to mimic or evoke that aesthetic. I can't have a life that looks like that while also having the amount of makeup that I want to enjoy. And so I have shame. I look at it and I feel the shame. I feel like I own too much. I feel like I have all of this stuff. I feel ashamed that I can't be as streamlined and curated and perfected as imagery of beautiful minimalist spaces online makes me think that other people are. Moving into the type of shame that you've all been expecting me to discuss, shame about spending too much money on makeup. Makeup is kind of tricky because it appears to not be as expensive as other stuff. You can get a Gucci lipstick for under $50. You can't get anything Gucci for under $50. except for makeup. So it's a way for those of us who aren't wealthy to have a piece of the luxury pie, which would be fine if someone were to just buy one Gucci lipstick a year and then stop there. But makeup has a way of causing us to want to buy more makeup, especially those of us who are compelled for some reason to refresh ourselves, to refresh our look, to constantly be playing and experimenting and coming up with something new. I don't think that that is bad. I think that it's absolutely wonderful. But makeup it's like the first way to do that, the easiest way to do that. It often feels like the least expensive way to do that. But if you do it over and over and over again, you end up spending as much as you would have spent if you'd bought, for example, one Gucci purse or one pair of Gucci shoes. There's also the nature of the industry, the nature of this community, which is always excited about the next new thing. And every single piece of makeup that's released, in its way, promises something new and better than anything you've had before. All of the makeup marketing seems to be angled towards helping you get excited about believing that you're going to look better than you've ever looked with this new thing. And in many cases, the reasoning behind that is just that it is the newest and latest and best. So in the way that we're trained to think that the newest generation of iPhone is better than the last one and the last one is better than the one before, we feel like the new release of lipsticks must be the best lipstick that anyone's ever worn, and we don't have them. We only have old lipsticks, so we go ahead and pick up yet another one. This is all just to say that I find that cosmetics is a realm in which it is uniquely easy to find oneself overspending without meaning to. And the result of that is inevitably shame. Sometimes it's just an undercurrent of shame. For a long time, I had this shame, but I didn't look at it. So I felt ashamed, but I didn't want to admit that I felt ashamed. So it was just like this seething pit of rot underneath my life. And then when I brought it to light, when I started looking at the numbers and paying attention and starting to make a change, then I felt even more ashamed because I was facing what I had done and it was horrible. During the first phase though, when the shame is kind of subsumed, you feel it, but you don't really acknowledge it, you don't really look at it, and you don't talk about it. During that phase, the shame would cause me to buy more makeup, because it was the way that I knew to feel good. And it was less expensive, or so I thought. It felt less expensive than many other habits that also could have made me feel good. It just didn't feel dirty or naughty to buy a Givenchy lip pencil for $30, or, to spend $50 on a beautiful Urban Decay palette with a glittery cover, because it's just a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. Of course, we all know what was going on. It was adding up to a tremendous amount of money. And this kind of leads me to the final type of shame that I have on this list. I've called it shame about other things that drives us to take refuge in makeup. So I was just discussing shame about having overspent on makeup driving me to take refuge in makeup. But shame about almost anything in my life has at many times in my past driven me to buy makeup. There's something about the nature of this stuff and the way that it's marketed. Its very nature is to do with enhancement and concealment at the same time. It's as if makeup itself is postulated to be an antidote for shame. Maybe not in our conscious minds, but in our subconscious minds. There is this promise that you'll be more beautiful, you'll be better, you'll present better, you'll be more attractive, you'll be more successful. There's this fantasy of betterment in all of these ways, in your own eyes and in other people's eyes, that is attached to makeup. Falling into the habit of taking refuge in buying makeup every single time you feel bad is a recipe for overspending. And depending on your economic circumstances, it's a recipe for debt, because we feel bad a lot. Life has its ups and downs, and that's okay. Some days we feel good, some days we feel bad, some days we feel good about ourselves, some days we feel shame. And especially if you're a person for whom the regular ups and downs of life, the regular challenges of life are underscored with a concern, a constant concern for how you look, whether you look young enough, whether your skin looks clear enough, whether you look feminine enough, whether you look pretty enough. And then the regular ups and downs of life are happening against a constant background of that concern. Makeup is such a seductive way to make yourself feel better. It's like this thing of, oh, the job interview didn't go well and I didn't get the job I wanted, so that problem isn't solved. But at least I can solve this other problem, this ever-present problem of not looking the way that I want to look. Sadie just meowed to be let in. It was the cutest little squeak I've ever heard. I just like hearing her purr. Anyway, you guys get what I'm driving at. I'm trying to say that there's something about makeup specifically that makes it a tempting band-aid for all of life's ills. There's a sense of accomplishment that comes with having bought a good piece of makeup. It's a sense of accomplishment that comes from feeling like the challenge of looking good, the challenge of polishing oneself, is an ever-present companion to all the other challenges of life. And that's insidious. I think it causes many people to buy way more makeup than they would want to own if those factors weren't in play. So that's the end of my list. And the most interesting thing about it, as you may have noticed when we were moving through, is that there are so many direct opposites, right? Shame about wearing makeup and shame about not wearing makeup. There's shame that surrounds anything that you might do with makeup, including nothing. Let's look back at the definition of shame with which we started the video. So shame in the dictionary definition comes from having been made aware of one's own wrong or foolish behaviors. And if we expand on that definition, if we reframe it to include my amendment, we can say that shame comes from having one's behaviors, mannerisms, or physical aspects characterized as wrong or foolish and believing in that characterization. To feel shame, you have to believe that there's something wrong with what you're doing or with what you are. But as we've seen in this video listing all of the kinds of makeup-related shame, when it comes to the face and the body, women and some men and gender-fluid people are damned if we do and damned if we don't. We are being sent the message that there's something wrong if we do wear makeup, and there's something wrong if we don't wear makeup. We're being sent the message that abundance signals success, and the message that minimalism signals success. Our society and our beauty industry are telling us clearly that everything we do is wrong in one way or another. Why are they sending those messages? What's the advantage to them sending those messages? I can think of a few. We live in an unequal society. And when women and queer people feel bad about ourselves, if we don't feel confident, we don't have the energy and the agency to rise up and fight for equality. This is true, I think, both on a large scale and on a small scale. And I'm actually really interested in the small scale. In my own friendships, in my own relationship, in my own family, there have been times when my insecurities about my face and body have kept me from communicating and basically kept me from fighting for or kept me from building the life I want. When it comes to romantic relationships, I can only speak from firsthand experience to heterosexual partnerships because I've only ever been with men. But I do know firsthand that shame-laden women have a harder time forging a relationship of true labor equality with men. When you think that there's something wrong with you, it's harder to grasp your rights and to fight for your needs. So that's the social advantage to making us feel this way. I would say that the industry advantage is really around the final manifestation of makeup shame that I talked about, which is other shame, shame about other things, general shame and bad feeling, driving us to take refuge in the purchase of makeup. According to the industry, the best makeup consumer is one who buys makeup every time she feels bad to make herself feel better. Basically, me in 2017. And that extends to a person buying makeup to make herself feel better because of shame over having bought too much makeup. For that consumer, the worse she feels about anything, the more she will buy. If we feel trapped in shame, damned if we do, damned if we don't, constantly buying makeup as a result of those feelings, that's an ideal situation for big corporations. They don't want us to be happy and confident and just buying makeup as a treat, just indulging in the artistic side of it once in a while. The potential for their earnings is much, much higher if our relationships to makeup are all shame-based. So what can we do about it? We can mistrust shame when it comes upon us. We can mistrust shame. We can make sure that our choices are driven by our own desires and goals and not by other people's commentary. The one kind of shame that I talked about that I feel does need to be addressed rather than mistrusted or ignored is the shame that comes from buying too much makeup. But I do suggest not dwelling in that shame if you have it. I do think that if you have that shame and you've subsumed it, if you're not looking at it, bring it out into the open, look at it, face the fact that you want to make a change. But then instead of dwelling in it, I recommend forward momentum. Just feeling miserable about yourself and dwelling in that shame isn't the answer, because as we know, with evidence from my own life, just dwelling in the shame and feeling really bad can then cause you to extend the problem by buying more makeup. So you have to get out of there. I say put your energy into building a clear vision of your financial future and of what you want to embody. And all the other kinds of shame that we talked about, all the other kinds of shame on the list, when you feel them, when they come up, just remember that there's shame that would come up if you were behaving in the opposite way as well. The only option is to overcome it by giving yourself license to identify your behaviors, your characteristics, your mannerisms, your beautiful face and body, to identify them as not being flawed in the way that our culture is trying to convince us that they are. Your choices are good. If you're making them on your own terms, if you're thinking them through, if you're doing what you want and what you know is right for you, your choices are good. And as long as you don't let someone else convince you that that's not true, then shame won't be an issue anymore. And if you can shed shame, or at least learn to identify it and mistrust it when it comes up in relation to makeup, then you can resist the ways in which our society and our industry are trying to sap us of the power that we have to make change and trying to drain our bank accounts dry. And that is it. That is everything I have to say today on the topic of makeup and shame. But I'm sure that there's lots more to be said, and I'm excited to read your comments on this topic. I really, really appreciate you being here. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.